Hello, everyone. Today we have with us Mr. Sharad Sharma, a prominent figure in India's technology landscape, who is an engineer from the Delhi College of Engineering. He is an expert advisory on various big forums and task forces like UNESCO, Soch India, Economic Forum, National Startup Advisory Council, SEBI's Financial and Regulatory Technology Committee, etc. The list is long, Sharadji co-founded iSPIRT Foundation, one of his dream projects, and it's a non-profit technology think tank, and which focuses mainly on creating digital infrastructure and fostering a robust software product ecosystem in the country. Okay. And that is where I more keen on talking to him today for in this program. And of course, I feel it has been instrumental in conceptualizing some great digital public goods like India Stack and Health Stack, which needs no introduction. Sharadji has been involved in solving India's major digital challenges like Aadhaar, KYC, e-sign, DigiLocker, and now the highly decorated UPI, because UPI had its own challenges when it started. People were not even sure about UPI will succeed, and today the world talks about it. So, of course, he has a hand in it, and that's why he's here today. Before starting iSpirit, Sharadji was a doyen in the industry, still is a doyen, holding several CXO positions. He's led Yahoo India R&D, apart from playing pivotal roles in Cisco, AT&T, Veritas, Lucent. I would like to stop your profile over here, Saraji. Too long, too big, and too great.
No, thank
Okay.
you so much.
So maybe we can start with the insurance sector. Okay, though it's not primarily a direct segment for you, but you are industry agnostic. You don't need to be specific about any industry, and your domain expertise generally is very good. And what we want today, sir, is a different perspective. Insurance perspective, we have various CEOs and all talking on it. We have various people. Well, India is already very much highly on the digital side of insurance, no doubt. But my question today to you is not about what we are, it's about what we can be. So, if with a kind permission, can I start?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
To start with something very, very basic. Okay, do you think our Indian insurance system, I mean, the overall KYC, the transaction processes, healthcare mechanisms, digitized, no doubt, are all these things in sync today? So, what are your views on this?
No, I think a lot of work needs to be done. More work has happened on the credit side because India Stack was focused on, democratizing credit in India. And because of that, so many issues that were taken up with cash flow lending in mind, right? And so insurance uh, is a beneficiary of many of those changes, but I think there is a catch up that is needed to streamline the processes that we need on the insurance side. The other place where there is a streamlining or rethinking that has yet to happen is with respect to uh, uh, assessment of future risk and how do you underwrite it. Credit is ultimately, not merely about the digital process. It's about how you price the risk in an effective fashion, and that much more work has happened in that area. And also keep in mind, we have literally 160 scheduled commercial banks. We have thousands of NBFCs. So there is much more vibrant ecosystem for innovation on the risk management side on lending than the system that we have on insurance. Insurance is still very limited competition. And so therefore, when you have limited competition, innovation is usually not as agile as is the case when the competition is intense. So both on
Interesting.
the process and on risk assessment, there is a lot of work that needs to be done on insurance.
Mhm. So now with Ayushman Bharat coming up and picking up significantly, how do you think it will impact the insurance industry? When I'm talking about insurance industry, I'm not talking only about the health. I'm talking about life and health both. So how do you think it will impact on this positive and negative? I would want your views on both the sides.
Look, uh, on the health side, it is a complex subject. On health, insurance is not a very big panacea because what is happening is that we, like many other countries, our burden is now non-communicable diseases, NCDs as they're called. NCDs are things like diabetes, they're like hypertension, and those kind of things that are there. These are, in some sense, based on lifestyle diseases, and they afflict a large percentage of the population. When you have large percentage of the population afflicted with something, then insurance is not an answer to that problem. See, if only 1 in 1,000 people are to get cancer, then you can collect premium from all 1,000 people, right? Little bit of premium because you're going to only deal with cancer for that 1 in 1,000 person. And so, therefore, that's a very effective financial model where everybody, if 900 of the 1,000 people are going to get a certain disease, then insurance isn't a mechanism to be able to do that. So, because of the shift that is taking place to NCDs, the importance of insurance is actually coming down. And what we need to therefore address is how do we deal with these lifestyle diseases. And so, therefore, OPD becomes important, and therefore early detection becomes important, preventive care becomes important. So these aspects of the health system will need to be addressed, and they need financial models, clever financial models, to be able to do that. Some of them are called contingent models, but they are not insurance. So a lot of growth in the health side is actually not going to be the traditional health insurance, but will be a new type of health arrangements that will happen, and some of them have already started happening. And as much more deregulation happens in the insurance sector, more will happen. And so we have to take that into account. Insurance is uh, one of the bullets that we can fire, but it is not the most important bullet in the health area. Having said that, there is enormous potential of insurance in the agriculture space. And so, for example, there may be hailstorm damage, and you can do, we have a program called Fasal Bima Yojana. Those kind of programs have been very poorly implemented. And so, therefore, despite very large needs, their implementation is so poor that they have not picked up at all. And these are the areas where you will see major growth taking place, because here, these are amenable to the insurance model as we go forward. So sometimes I feel that health insurance is being overthought, and things like crop insurance are being underthought. As we go forward, we need to have a much more holistic view of insurance as we go forward.
Anything related to this piece on the life insurance?
See, life insurance is important, but keep in mind, life insurance also is effective only if you want to give life insurance to people when they're in the earning stages of their family, so that if something happens to the breadwinner, the family is protected, right? So therefore the question is, everybody is eventually going to die, right? And so the question is that if you die at today, I think life expectancy in India is 77 years. It is increasing rapidly. Let's say tomorrow it's 80 years, 81 years. Then when somebody hits 81 years, and if every 81-year-old has to be paid out insurance, then insurance is not practical, for the same reason that I explained in the case of health. Insurance is practical that for those untimely deaths that happen when people are still in the earning years, let's say from 20 years to 50, 55 years, when the family is very vulnerable, if something happens to the breadwinner, what will happen to their children? Those are the conditions that where we need to be able to cover insurance. So now, is that really happening? No. Insurance, the purpose of insurance was to cover this group of people. But since we have all these incentives, tax incentives, and others that are given, which are not directed properly, insurance is becoming an asset class by itself, a saving asset class by itself. That is actually not a desirable way to go. So I think we have misread the importance of insurance. We are bringing all the ills of the Western world from insurance here, and it's not something that is necessarily a good thing for all classes of insurance. We have to rethink the insurance industry in a way which is really suitable for the Indian society, both in health as well as for life insurance, and as well as for many other types of insurance. India needs agriculture insurance in a very big way, because we know when a farmer has some crop damage, they don't have the ability to recover from it, and therefore they are big sufferers. So Ayushman Bharat, you mentioned, is very useful, because the quickest way for a lower middle class family to drop out of the middle class is when some bad insurance event happens in the family. So that is why we need some insurance. So insurance is a mechanism for societal good, and it must be used in that context. And which means there are some places where we should use it, and some places we may not even see this as the right solution as we go forward.
Sir, now your favorite success story, I can say, the favorite domain and the first success story. Most developed nations have got a common health record, as you're aware of it. So, do you see that as a possibility for a nation in the near future? Okay,
Yeah,
if so,
yeah,
how
yeah,
soon?
yeah, of
And
course.
will it be implemented across all stakeholders? I mean, all stakeholders.
Yeah, of course. Because on August 13th, 2023, just about, you could say a few months back, India passed the DPDP Act. The president signed the act on 13th of August, and it puts in place a system of consented sharing of personal data, which is also applicable for health. Now, in anticipation of that, a pilot called Personal Health Records is already underway, and that is patterned on a very successful pilot that has been underway in the financial sector, which is the account aggregator system.
Yeah.
So India has adopted a system which says that flow of personal data should be based on consent, and as far as possible, that should be electronic consent. And if it's electronic consent, the benefit of that will be that it will be an open system, multiple parties can participate, it will be granular, it will be revocable, it will be auditable, notifiable, and secure. So this is now embedded in our legal framework, and we have success story and financial data side, which will get replicated on the health side. Now, on the health side, this requires a use case. See, on the financial data side, the use case is credit. On the health side, the use case is complex. Why is it complex? Because there is a concept in health that I cannot discriminate based on exogenous variables, right? So, which means if, let's say, you and I apply for health insurance, both are the same age, you live in a wealthy neighborhood and I live in a slum, then the fact that I am more susceptible to infections should not is not considered to be an ethical reason to charge more insurance from me than would be from you. Now, these kind of problems are not there on the credit side. So there is a need to build safe systems that will allow us to discriminate between what are exogenous variables and what are endogenous variables. All that will have to happen as we go forward. Some of it has to be a leadership that the industry itself takes, and some of it will need to be provided by the regulator. So all that work is ahead of us, for us to be able to do that, to be able to drive the health use case for digital data, right? And then you will see better results happening. But it is inevitable that longitudinal health records and the concept of digital health records is going to take root in the coming years as we go forward.
What you're saying is the variable is technically a risk parameter for an insurance industry, right? So it is like if I am maintaining my body to health through good exercises, I should not be penalized through a general
No,
pricing. So
no.
I should be given
See,
credit.
the fact
Similarly, somebody is not
no,
taking. So it's
no,
like
no,
that. That's the way
no,
it's
no,
considered in insurance, right?
no. See, my preventive care is not is an endogenous variable. If supposing an insurer says if you walk 10,000 steps a day, I'll give you cheaper insurance, that is legally allowed.
Sure.
But to use the fact that I live in a slum to give me a charge higher is not allowed. So there's a very nuanced difference between what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, right? So that is so. Of course, you can make variation between people who take preventive care, who do early detection, who take care of their health. You want to encourage that behavior, and the best way to encourage that is by reducing their cost of healthcare, because that is indeed because of all these factors, their costs should come down. But that is different from a dress being used as a variable to do that.
While we have spoken on most of the issues, one very specific question. You have been a pioneer in the digital infrastructure space. Okay, I'm using the word infrastructure over here more than the software space. And you have worked very closely with the government authorities, which is very critical, both in India and abroad. So you have a different view, a perspective, and an experience in it. I would like to have your views on how can we have life insurance product you agree is more complex than other things from a designing point. So how can we have a complex life insurance product or a technically a high value health insurance product? I'm not talking about the normal ones, high value. So how will they go through a straight through process without any paperwork or manual processes? So the insurance industry is digitized, but honestly speaking, it's not a straight through process. There are pockets where manual intervention is required. So how can we go end to end STP?
So there are two things that are needed. One is already in place, which is called the Health Claims Exchange, right? And this is an effort that started some years ago, and it is now beginning to roll out. There is even a non-profit body which is assisting in that rollout. It's called Swasth Alliance, and people can get more details about HCX, Health Claims Exchange, on the Swasth Alliance website. And what it does is it allows claims to move from the provider to the payer, right? Now, on the payer side, you need to make sure that that claim, which is arrived digitally and it does not have, you need to make sure that this is not refiling of a claim. There are many frauds that are possible. You need to do some fraud detection. But in addition to that, assuming there is no fraud, you also need to do adjudication. Now, it is possible to do auto adjudication. The problem in auto adjudication is not that the claim is in electronic form. That has happened. So the claim will arrive now with all the line items of the claim. Let's say, I'm giving you an example. The claim is for a surgery, which includes anesthesia, it includes surgical gloves, it includes many other tests that have done, all will show up as line items. But the question is, you have to adjudicate it against a policy. Now, as you know this better than I do, there may be a one health policy which pays for surgical gloves and another health policy that does not pay for surgical gloves. That health policy has to be written in an electronic form too. Then only can you get auto adjudication. So you need a description language to be able to convert the policy into into a electronic policy that has that has to be done in a way that is commonly understood by everybody, and that is what is holding it up today. So the claim itself has got all the standards on how do you represent a claim, how do you get it from place A to place B. All that has been sorted out, and how do you do it in a privacy preserving manner? How can you then do fraud assessment on that claim? All that has sorted out. What is not sorted out is adjudication, and adjudication requires our insurers to be able to represent their policy in electronic form. Now, this is not very difficult. I don't know how many people know that, for example, a very radically different example. When you fly on a plane, the plane has a crash avoidance policy. That used to be written in English. But now the airspace is getting complicated, so it is being written in code now. And it has been written in code using a language called Julia, which has been invented in Bangalore. And it's one of Bangalore's biggest success story. It's called Julia Hub. So FAA in the US uses that Julia to represent this, to do that. So it is possible to do it, but this level of thinking has not yet come in the insurer side of the business, right? And we need to do this. And one way to do this is to dramatically increase competition, because right now there is insufficient competition in the insurance industry, and therefore there is very little reliance on innovation to drive this forward. So ultimately the nirvana is to get to auto adjudication, so that I go to a doctor, I can get my claim OPD sorted out. I can go to a chemist because the doctor's prescription, I can, my insurance can pay for my medicines, right? At the chemist based on auto adjudication because it knows this medicine is related to a claim that's already been approved, and therefore it is okay to approve this particular payment, and then you can get cash free medicines from the chemist, from the pharmacy itself. So all this is possible, and I think thinking has happened, but industry has been rather slow in
Oh,
adopting some of these ideas as we go forward.
interesting. One related question. You mentioned about personal lines and the health claims as expert of it. Are there open APIs available for the all the insurance companies for this?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Of course. In fact, five insurance companies are already in the pilot trying it out, and it is in the field right now. These are all open APIs. This is a completely open API. Hmm. Huh.
So I think you already answered my next question to a great extent. What I wanted to talk about was ask you on the EHR, the electronic health records becoming a reality soon in our country. I think you have spoken a lot about it. So, but still, there is a challenge in this. When we talk about electronic health record, and what you have been talking about is more of health insurance. When I talk about life and general both, okay, and when I talk about healthcare and the electronic health records, there is a challenge on the life insurance side more because in healthcare, in health insurance, what happens is the document is provided by the hospital or the patient for the claim. But in the case of life insurance, the guy is already dead. And uh, you may be aware that there are crores and crores of rupees of fraud happening on this side. And the story for the life insurance industry is catch me if you can. Okay. Basically, that I have the records. If you can take out the records, great. Then you can repudiate my claim, or else you have to pay the claim. So this is not the very typical story, which is creating a major hurdle for risk management on the life insurance side. So obviously, we are not going to discuss about frauds and all and the claims processing right now over here. How would you like to I can say clarify, or how would you like to justify, or how would you like to say, how can we go ahead in this the smooth digital policy issuance and the claim process, taking such fraud which are already happening? It's thousands of crores. It's not a small thing.
No, look, what is happening on the flip side of a digitization is that financial fraud is exploding, right? Uh, and this is happening in many, many sectors. And, you know, um, people are doing all kinds of frauds. UPI, they'll convince you to send money, because there's some court case that requires you to pay money. There is a pending people think they're paying their credit card bill, but it's actually not going to the credit card company and goes somewhere, right? So we need to do customer education, consumer education. We are not doing enough of that. We need to be able to educate. All this fraud requires people to be able to.
And one person.
The financial the financial fraud is a very big problem that we have in many, many areas. And we need to address it with a three-tiered structure. We need to do more user education. That is a problem many people just with education will happen. We need honeypot systems so that people can, the people who are fighting that fraud can identify fraudsters before it happens. And
Yes.
there is thinking about that. And India is really thinking about a new national Cyber Crime Prosecution Protocol. It's called NCPP. Why? Because we need a new way of thinking about the investigating agency and the prosecuting agency. So if the crime has happened, let's say in Bangalore, and the criminals are in Haryana, right? The investigation team will be in Bangalore because that's where you file the complaint.
Correct.
But the prosecution team has to be in Haryana because that's where the criminal is, right? So how do you now make coordination happen across states? Remember, law and order is a state subject. So people are exploiting this actually to create all kinds of problems that we have. So it needs a structural solution. Hopefully that will come about. This is a problem that is understood. And but the question is, we need some changes in our prosecution protocol. And once in the absence of that, people are taking advantage of this very often, right? And so now in some cases that you mentioned, where there is information asymmetry, right? And so therefore, people are taking life insurance, even when they know that person has a fatal or has a, may have cancer and will pass away, and they don't declare the fact that they have cancer, and then they're still able to claim. But so there's an information problem, but there's also another bigger problem that is there. So actually, all this has to be sorted out because we have to fight digital financial fraud on a war footing, because that is growing very rapidly because of the new digital systems that we've created.
Right. The fighting is one part. What I'm trying to say is there are scams there are organizations. They are actually, you can say, pseudo insurance industries which are running only for claims. So it's not about I trying to fake my health and trying to take a policy. It's about some unknown person standing across the road who is insuring me and paying my family a peanuts of thousands of rupees, and he's taking lakhs and lakhs. It will end up in crores. So this process he's able to do because he knows that the insurance industry cannot get my health records.
Yeah, so all I'm trying to say is it is deeper than that, right? For example, today, the case where a third party takes insurance on my life is as a collateral. It most often happens when you take a housing loan, for example, right? So there it is with the knowledge of that individual. We can easily create a system where we say that you can only take life insurance with the concurrence of the individual, even if the beneficiary is not going to be that individual, as is the case in the as is the case in the life insurance for housing. The beneficiary is not the individual. Beneficiary is the person who gave you the loan, right? But it is with visibility and concurrence of the individual. So the point is, there are many ways to fight this. One way to fight this is what you are talking about. There are other ways to fight this. And we need to be able to approach this with all the ways of fighting it. And this problem, for example, will go away the moment you say that this loan can only be taken with the concurrence of the individual. And now in our system, to get
Still
concurrence of
there's
the
something.
individual is relatively easy. Huh.
Yes, it's an OTP. OTP मैं आपको दे दूंगा हो गया.
तो वही है ना, तो
So
ये this
basically,
is
I am the
also
insured.
happening.
My wife is my beneficiary. So the third person is nowhere in the books.
No, I
That's the
agree. This is
biggest
happening
problem our
for
country is facing.
nominees. This is happening for nominee accounts, right?
Correct.
People quietly replace nominees because we don't have any authentication for nominees. Here, at least you need an OTP for assigning somebody as nominee. Somebody can, in my account, change my nominee without my permission, because there's no OTP also required there, right? So therefore, this is a set of problems that need to be tackled, as you rightly are pointing out. All I'm trying to say is, but these are easily solvable problems, but we have to motivate action on all of these. This is instead of focusing on an individual problem, it's very hard to motivate this, because all these problems, they have to be grouped, and because the solutions are very basic solutions, they're not complex solutions. And when you group them, then you can get attention to them and bring about the changes that are needed, because the changes that are needed, as I said, are in the prosecution protocol, in authentication systems. There are many changes that are needed. And they will only come about if we don't take one use case as the problem, but we are able to collate all the problems that are there and then attack them together.
Are you visualizing EHR coming soon? Electronic health
See,
records which is
first of
available
all,
for
I want to
insurance?
clarify EHR and PHR have a very big difference. The
Yeah.
EHR has information that may not be necessarily visible to the patient. So EHR is maintained by the provider. So when I go to a hospital, it is possible that my file there has notations from the doctor that may not be
Yes.
shared with me. They may only give me an e-prescription. They may only give me a discharge summary that may not have all the internal notes that are there. EHR is something that has internal notes. We are not
Yeah.
trying to solve that problem at scale today. We are only trying to solve the PHR problem. PHR problem is the subset of that is given to the
Correct.
patient, so that the patient or the provider, one of the two parties, can make sure it becomes digital. If it becomes digital, it stays digital for its life, right? So it's a subset of the problem. So first, PHR, not EHR. Second, EHR requires an EMR, right? And
Yes.
PHR digitization doesn't require an EMR, because
No.
whether or not they do that, they may give me a physical prescription, but I can still put it in a digital form, right? But if I want to do EHR, then I need a EMR. Now, there is work that is happening in pockets to also address this, but that is a very big problem that is not going to get solved in a hurry. Because in convincing the providers to use a EMR is a very Herculean problem. It has not happened successfully in almost any part of the world. So, with very few exceptions, it has worked. So, we are not focusing on EHR, we are only focusing on PHR as a country for now. That distinction is important, but that will solve the problem that you're talking about. But it is nevertheless
To some extent.
a subset of the problem that we are talking about.
To some extent. Last question too. Again, it's a futuristic part of it. I would like to know, can we have, we are on the verge of it, a digitized healthcare system in our country, which will connect the people, the healthcare providers, government, insurance industry. I'm talking about a smooth, secure blockchain process. Is it a possibility? Is it a reality? Check, if I can ask you, whether we can connect every related sector in healthcare, that is the patient, the GP, that's a general physician, the hospitals, the path lab, pharmacy labs, the pharmacists, medical equipment companies, then the we can say every healthcare ecosystem provider, insurers, government authorities. Can we create a blockchain where, for example, if I say that I get admitted in a hospital, okay. So one is the hospital has come into part. There's a doctor before that a GP would recommend that. He's come into the picture as a patient. I'm already there. Then the hospital, apart from the hospital record, there's a medical path lab which is going to happen. Some pharmacy prescriptions are going to happen. Then there could be some stents or whatever equipments that may be coming from through the medical equipment company. Can we connect all these things and say, yes, this is smooth
Yeah,
process?
yeah, but the question, yeah, Ganesh, we can, but again, we are using a wrong model here. And let me explain why. So, so do you use Uber or Ola? Let's say you use Uber and Ola, right?
Okay.
And every day you use it to go to office and come back in the evening, right? So over a month, 20 working days, you use it 40 times a day. What is the chance that you'll meet the same driver again?
Less than 1%. That's it.
Very low, isn't it? And that's
Yeah,
okay with you. You don't care. It doesn't matter to you at all, right?
correct.
If similarly, if let us say I every day, or every week, let us say, I buy something, I buy grocery, right? And the delivery person who comes to deliver is different every time. Does it matter to me? It doesn't matter to
No.
me, right? Let's say I buy a phone every now and then. Sometimes I buy from Flipkart, sometimes from Amazon, sometimes from Snapdeal, sometimes from pin code. Doesn't matter? No, because all these, it doesn't matter at that time, because these are all finished goods in some sense. It doesn't matter. But let us say I have a child, and the child has to go every year and 10 times a year get their concepts of physics clarified, and the child is in sixth class. Should the child go to 10 different teachers, or would it be helpful if if the system takes you back to the same teacher again and again?
Same teacher.
Isn't it? So if we know that a family should or ends up visiting a doctor 3 times a year, 10 times in 3 years, is it not better that it takes that family back to the same doctor for those 10 times? So this concept that we have created, the Uber concept that we are trying to bring into healthcare itself is a wrong metaphor at all. That's not our problem. Our problem is to actually build strong relationships. It's if in the financial world, if I have a wealth manager, I want to stay with the same wealth manager for 10 years so that that person knows my life history and therefore can develop an understanding and give me better advice as they go forward. Now I may choose that health manager after trying out one, not liking it, trying out second, trying out third, but fourth time I find a good one, that I want to stick with it. I may do the same with the doctor. So this notion that we have to Uberize our health system is the wrong notion. This is not what the health system needs. The health system, if our goal is to keep people healthy, we don't need to Uberize our health system. We need to digitize our health system to build stronger relationships between the doctor and the patient, to be able to create a digital GP concept that we can introduce, which is going away, unfortunately, because people travel, and so we want to be able to maintain that. What do we have? We talked about in the early part, we have NCDs. These are lifestyle diseases. We need chronic care. Chronic care means if I have to go and get to a doctor 12 times a year to manage somebody's blood pressure or diabetes, it's better that you have a consistent doctor that you talk to all the time. So this Uberization of healthcare is not the answer, not the desirable direction that we go. So sometimes we get carried away because digitization has meant Uberization. And we say if Uberization was the right thing to do in groceries, right thing to do for taxis, right thing to do for commerce. I want to buy this book. I don't care who supplies me that book because it's a finished product. I don't really care. But that is not what healthcare is about. Healthcare needs a different type of digitization. And somehow I feel that we are not having this conversation sufficiently. Although, if you go back and read NHA's original UHI consultation paper, it articulates this very, very well. But despite that, our Uberization mindset is so strong that we are only bringing the Uberization mindset to healthcare all the time. So sadly, I don't think that is the kind of outcomes that we are seeking. The effort that is going on is very different from the Uberization effort. And unless we take that effort, only then will we get the results that we seek, which is healthcare, which is chronic health conditions are managed. We have more treatment regimen adherence. People, if they get tuberculosis, they take the medicine for 6 months that they're supposed to, which they don't today. We are able to do early detection. We are able to do preventive care. And to be able to design a health system that will allow us to do this, we will need PHRs. Don't misunderstand me. PHR is a must, but we need a different type of relationship between the patient and the provider. We need a concept of a care fiduciary. It needs a new type of a health system, because every time we think of Uberization, this comes from the US. And the most broken, without doubt, the most broken healthcare system in the world is the US healthcare system. In fact, anything that is happening in the US healthcare system, we should ask ourselves twice that whether we want it or not. Because this is the only OECD country which has declining life expectancy. Imagine that. And it's not that its life expectancy is high. It is not even high. And yet it is declining. The gap between US and Indian life expectancy is only a very little. And we are going up and they are coming down. In the OECD world, amongst rich countries, that's the only country with declining health expectancy, despite the fact that they're spending in some cases 10 times more than other OECD countries for that. That is an example of what not to do. And unfortunately, instead of thinking from first principles, we mindlessly copy those ideas and try and think they also are right ideas for India. If India starts adopting those ideas, India's health system is finished. It has got no future. So we must be careful, therefore, in how we think about digitization. I will encourage you and your readers to go back and look at the consultation paper on UHI. That is a significant effort to think about what we
Absolutely.
should do. And that is the starting point for thinking about what kind of
Fully
digitization.
agree, sir. When I asked you this question, it was not from the point of its uberization. Maybe I meant digitization, like it's an EMR I'm talking about. The reason I said the blockchain is from the security, forget the blockchain part of it, the connectivity point of view. The reason I said the medical equipment company, because what happens is if a medical equipment company is selling one stent for 30,000 rupees, the billing to the patient is 80,000 rupees. Okay, the reason is there is no price tag. There is no barcoding connected end to end. And similarly, the pharmacy. So I really, as you rightly said, I really don't care medicines coming from which shop. That medicine matters to me, whether it's the right medicine and is it authenticated. The strength is the right one and is it within the right range. So
Right.
electronic chain, medical chain, I'm talking, not the Uberization piece.
See, even there, look, it is so this is not a problem. If you go out in the field, having more pharmacy choices is not a problem. Finding the right pathology lab is not a problem. The only place where we have a problem is actually finding a continued relationship with a doctor. The good
Correct.
doctors are very busy, and the doctors that are not very busy are available. But many people don't have the trust and the confidence to go to them. So there is no way to know whether their ratings are accurate, because those ratings are based on subjectivity. It's like Uber ratings. That's not the way to rate a doctor. It has to be based on outcomes, and that means that we have to set up a system like NICE you have in UK, which is data based ratings. So that doctor may not have bedside manners, but that doctor's cardiac surgery rates are very high. Is that a better doctor or a doctor who has better bedside manners? So these are issues that need to be addressed, right? So now coming to the blockchain part. Look, blockchain as a concept has 6 concepts, right? So, and 3 are applicable to India and 3 are not applicable to India, right? So, for example, it has a concept saying everything is public, right? Not applicable in the case of health, because some of my patient records cannot be public. It is permissionless, which means that there's no regulatory support there, not applicable to there. Proof of work. Proof of work does not work. It drives the costs up too much and the transaction costs are not suitable. So proof of stake is there. But proof of stake, is it whose proof of stake? People sitting in the outside India or people sitting in India? So we got to resolve who the notaries can be. Is it proof of work? Is it proof of stake? If it's proof of stake, whose proof of stake is going to be there? But there are 3 that are applicable. The 3 concepts is it is programmable system. So I can build programmable things on top of it very easily. Yes, we should have that. It is immutability. If there's a record, then it is immutable. That is important. It has zero knowledge proofs, which is important for insurance. And so these 3 concepts are what we have to do. What is today happening is that we are not making this distinction. We are just taking this bag of 6 concepts and applying them mindlessly in India as if all 6 are applicable. All 6 are not applicable. And so,
Agree.
therefore, we need a nuanced approach again to be able to look at it and say, yes, some things are applicable, and some things we have to rethink in the context of India for it to be applicable in India, like proof of work, like permissionless, like public records, right? And so, and then we will get to an answer that we seek. So the devil is in the details, and that will allow us to use that technology more effectively as we go forward. Until we do that, it will remain just in the periphery and it will not go mainstream.
Great. Uh, Thank you, Sharadji. And it was really insightful. Anything else that you would like to add? I would like to say one thing
No,
personally to you. Like I like your BP pick, which says that set a goal so big, but you can't achieve it until you grow into the person who can achieve it.
right.
It's nice. So, anything you'd like to tell to our audience in
No,
this
no, no,
respect?
no. Look,
Closing
I
statement.
think I think India has momentum today. We must deeply think about these problems. India's problems. India is rich in problems. If we apply ourselves, we'll be able to solve them. But as with any other system, we must learn how to look at anything at three levels of abstraction: at the bhajan level, at the Gita level, and at the Veda level, right? This is what is our strength as a culture, right? And what you hear, if you live your life only at the bhajan level, it's not going to be a great life. You have to be able to go deeper and say, let me see what Gita or Bible or any other book is saying, which is going deeper, going to going to the deeper logic behind the bhajans that is there. And but in India, we can go yet deeper. It says go to first principles,
Yes.
right? So we have to solve our problems. If faithful replicas of systems outside India were available to us, we would have already adopted them. They don't work in India, right? And so therefore everything that we are getting at population scale is happening because we are really building this up from first principles onwards. And so we must go back to first principles, think from first principles onwards, and solve our problems, rather than being, doing faithful replica of what may be happening in some other country. We should learn from that, understand what their principles are, copy those principles. There's no shame in doing that, but we must engage in first principle based thinking. And your
Mhm.
book that you're proposing to write can inspire people to do that. And so therefore I'm very, very happy to hear what you're doing, and I want to wish you all the very best in
Thank you
bringing
very
that to
much, sir.
go forward. Huh?
Our insurance industry is in bhajan level or the Gita level?
Yes. Chalo. All right. Take care.
Thank
Huh?
you, sir.
Thanks,
Have a good
Ganesh.
day, sir. Take care.
Yes.
Thank
Bye.
you very
Bye.
much.